Today is the 26th of August, 2025. Where were you on the 27th of August, 2010? Where were you? That's 15 years ago. Now, there are many people who will remember where they are, where they were, and there are some who may be hearing us today and they may not remember. But I'm sure all of us know that in 2010, we got a new constitution in this country. It was a journey that had taken many years to get there. But on that day, at some point, there was President Mwai Kibaki holding on to the constitution like this after the promulgation of the constitution. There's a new big flag at Uhuru Park, flying, and there are doves being released, and there was a lot of things that were just happening there on that day. 21 gun salute, and msiogope wananchi tafadhali msiogope, That constitution is turning 15 tomorrow. Yeah. And among the things in that constitution is, we all talk about chapter 1 of the constitution, which establishes where the sovereign power rests. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. That's Article 1. And then we go into Article 3 that says sovereign power under this constitution is delegated to the following state organs, which shall perform their functions in accordance with this constitution. 1, Parliament. 2, the national executives at the national executive and the executive at county levels. 3, the judiciary and independent tribunals. Okay? And then we established the judiciary in chapter 10 of this constitution. Why was it important to talk about the judiciary then? That's what we want to discuss today, and whether the dreams and aspirations of Kenyans in writing and giving themselves a constitution and establishing a judiciary has actually been realized. We are joined by the Vice Chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, the Honorable Isaac Rutto, and Lady Justice Fatuma Sichale, who is also a member of the Judicial Service Commission, representing Court of Appeal judges. Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Vice Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Asanteni sana for joining us for this conversation as we get to commemorate 15 years of this teenager called Katiba, Kenya. But before we start, Janet is going to give you the day's quote. What she does is she goes through records and sees things that were said by somebody a long time ago. Not today. It's not you today.
And I'm not quoting anyone here because sometimes...
she will come up with your quote soon. But today, she'll tell us who said what and when.
Yes.
And let's see whether those words mean anything to you.
Yes. This person was a Kenyan scholar and lawyer. I'm sure the name is familiar, Okoth Ongendo. In 1991, he wrote an essay called Constitutions Without Constitutionalism. And one of the excerpts, he said, Africa is littered with constitutions without constitutionalism. Do you agree?
Let's begin with Lady Justice. I think I do agree. Okoth Ongendo was our lecturer during my time at the University of Nairobi. And indeed, I agree with him that we have many constitutions in the African continent, but the problem is we do not practice constitutionalism. Basically, putting it in other words is the tenets of what the Constitution provides. Have we lived true to the mandate of the Constitution? And I think for me, Janet, the answer would be no, we haven't.
Thank you for that. The honesty will come into why.
We'll come into
the why, but Vice Chair, what about you? Do you agree?
Yeah, I also agree, because for us to practice that constitution, we've got to internalize it, and the entire population has to be quite aware of it, and every person in the exercise of duty, either private or public, should be aware and ensure that that is being done. Of course, the first priority is that the institutions themselves that are bequeathed with the responsibility of governance must obey that constitution.
It's a great place to start. 15 years old, teenager. We were just discussing with Janet and Eric in the first hour, and I feel like we are experiencing the typical teenage behavior, right? Which is we're testing limits, pushing boundaries, seeing how far we can push things as far as our constitution is concerned. And I think that's a good thing, because then, test the limits of something. But I also wonder, when you think of the last 15 years, what have been the biggest wins with this constitution? I think we can all agree we still have some work to do, but let's start with the wins. Let me start with Lady Justice Fatuma.
I think focusing on the biggest wins, I'd like to confine myself to the judiciary, which is a place that I really know best. And I see the judiciary as an institution that has grown in leaps and bounds. If you compare the number of judges that are in situ compared to what obtained then, you can actually see that exponential growth.
Right.
We didn't have the Supreme Court. That was a creature of the 2010 Constitution. The Court of Appeal judges then, I think, numbered about 9. Today, we are 28. The establishment provides for a number of 70. We are not yet anywhere near 70. The High Court judges also, the numbers have greatly increased. The establishment provides for a figure of 200. We are at 98. We didn't have the Environment and Land Court. Now that is in situ. We did not have the Employment and Labor Relations Court. Again, that is in place. These are actually specialized courts as spoken to by the 2010 Constitution. When it comes to the Qadis, again, we see that the numbers have increased, although currently they number about 45. 45 in all the constituencies. You can see that that's really a very small number, bearing in mind that apart from Qadis going to court to arbitrate on disputes, they also act as religious leaders.
Yeah.
But having said that, in spite of the numbers not being where we expect the numbers to be, I see that there has been growth in all the areas in the judiciary. Even in terms of how we are doing work, we are now hearing cases virtually. That never used to happen. There is a lot of digital transformation in the judiciary in terms of filing the cases, in terms of making returns, the individual judges making returns. So really, when you look at the institution of the judiciary, I think it has grown in all the areas.
Okay. Just before we go to Isaac Rutto, hey, just a very quick question to Lady Justice. I'm thinking through, sometimes we don't have an understanding of how one becomes a judge, genuinely. Like, okay, I mean, there's a person in law school right now thinking, okay, I'm in law school, one day, I'll sit on that big bench. How?
I think it is a dream of many lawyers to eventually join the bench. If you ask me, I would say it calls for hard work, extremely hard work. Number 2, or number 1, integrity. If you possess the 2, you will surely one day make it to the judiciary and sit as a judge.
I like that. Okay.
Yes.
Procedurally?
In terms of procedure?
Yes.
You do your thing wherever you are. Then when we advertise as Judicial Service Commission, you make your application. Then, of course, there is a vetting process that is gone into. We involve all the agencies that do the background checks. On the day of the interview, you come, we take you through what you've been doing. We also ask you about your integrity. And of course, we'll have gotten information about who you are, what kind of a person you are, etc., etc. So we place a premium on the virtue of integrity. And of course, you must be extremely hardworking. Sometimes you hear judges say, we hear cases during the day, but we write judgments at night. And that is really very true.
So resilient, hardworking, consistent.
Integrity.
Integrity.
A person of integrity.
A person of integrity. Vice Chair, just as Mariam asked, the biggest wins from your perspective on the Constitution.
Just to add to that first, before I go into the other areas, is the fact that you would have to work for a minimum of 10 years. More practically, say 15 years, so that you can apply. Because the numbers we now have are quite huge. And therefore,
the number of applications?
The number of applications has really grown. So it means that particular field has become quite attractive and has yielded quite a number of Kenyans ready to take up those responsibilities. So one has to persevere and wait for those years and do the best that you can.
10 to 15 years of active practice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Or academia.
Or academia.
Okay. Yes. Now, as to the wins that have happened for the last 15 years, mine, you recall, I have not been in the judiciary for this long. This is my first stint operating around the judiciary. I've been in the executive part and the legislative area for quite a bit of time. And when I look at it, I think we've made quite some strides. We've widened the democratic space. Parliament has grown. We now have the Senate, and we have devolution that has really brought in more access to developmental issues. And we are growing towards equalizing the counties, having equal access to the resources of this republic. Far-flung places never used to participate in actually the money economy, and the things have changed. We now, if you go to Turkana now, you can see plenty of activity there. It's no longer dust all over. You can now see some tarmac in places like those far-flung areas that had been relegated to the backwaters of the Kenyan economy. So I think we've had plenty. Education has grown as well. There is plenty to do, nevertheless, as we've witnessed of late, that we still need to do a lot, not rewriting the constitution, but internalizing it and making use of it, and everyone obeying it. We still have legacies of the past, where one still believes he's an authority unto himself, once given public authority, and therefore may not agree to the tenets of the new constitution.
Of what's provided for in the constitution. Isaac, you were a member of parliament in 2010.
Yes.
Representing Chapalungu constituency in Bomet.
Yes.
You went to Naivasha.
Yes.
And even before that, you were participating in the conversation around the constitution.
Right.
Specific to the judiciary. If I recall, the conversations that were happening around the judiciary and what we want to see with our new judiciary, with our new constitution, was number one, more independence of the judiciary.
Yes.
Previously, the president would wake up and hire and fire judges.
Yes.
And now we said, no, that has come to an end. And we also said that we want to see more citizen representation in the
JSC.
operations of the judiciary through the JSC.
Yes.
And we also wanted to see an end to corruption. We had just come out of a purge in the judiciary and conversations around corruption in the judiciary. Looking back, and now that you sit in the judiciary, you're in the legislature, you went to the executive, and now you're right there in the Judicial Service Commission. Are we living the dreams of our constitution as far as the judiciary is concerned?
By and large, I think we are. We've not reached there yet, absolutely, but we are. For instance, a judge will not be fired just like that. He'll go through a process. Recently, you saw one. Either they are then relieved, like we've seen, some released from duty, and one returned. They are being given fair hearings for their cases. They are not just dismissed in a baraza. They are not harassed, and you no longer see people being dragged to court on a Saturday because of political expediency. Now people go through the system of trial, and people have fair access to justice. And you have seen the courts now insisting on, say, the principle of habeas corpus, that you be produced. And you've seen the Commissioner of Police eventually having to bow down to that reality, that the courts must be obeyed. Of course, there is still room for improvement in those areas, but to me, I think when I look at it, when I look at what was happening before, that is certainly not what we are seeing now. It is quite a distance. Anyone who can look at what we were doing in the 80s, for example, in the 70s, and then in the 80s, early 90s, definitely this is a completely different scenario. The Chief Justice is hired in a known and clear methodology. We've seen a situation where even maybe the president attempts to refuse to appoint some judges, but the courts hold on to it, and we eventually get the judges on duty. Whether they were popular, whether it was expedient for the executive to appoint, it's neither here nor there. The fact is, at the end of the day, I think we are moving in the right direction. What we need to do is everyone to do his part.
Right.
Kusoma Katiba.
Yes.
You're about to come in, Mariam. I just wanted to quickly say, I know this is really about marking an important milestone, but public confidence in the Judicial Service Commission tends to swing sharply. Like, 2017, there was a lot of praise, for upholding the presidential petition, for example. And then over the last year, if I'm just to use that as an example, it has swung quite a bit to the point where now we need to talk about how do we enhance public confidence in the judiciary. I want to get your reactions on how you feel. I know we're going into a break. Mariam, you wanted to add something or we come back?
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll talk about it in the next half hour. Mine was also, have we devolved justice?
All right.
But we'll just go into that break really quickly and then come back with Janet's question. It's true. I think sometimes it feels like if it's a ruling that the people like, it's like, yay, judiciary, we believe in you. If it's something
Some people don't like.
Some people, yeah, suddenly.
But they're allowed.
Let's talk about it. We'll be back. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. Of course, we're with Lady Justice Fatuma Sichale and Isaac Rutto, who is a vice chair of the JSC, the Judiciary Service Commission. We'll be right back after this.
Yes. Some comments here before we come back to the conversation. Kali Journal says, good morning. I believe fundamental change in approach is due to underlying assumptions on how a government governs. Livity has come with something strong. If the president was pro-Katiba, every day would be Katiba Day. Creating a commemoration day in a sea of impunity, theft, human rights violations, and corruption is an insincerely vacuous effort.
So we should not have a Katiba Day.
Have it every day.
So we should
don't
not-
wake up and say Happy Katiba Day. Every day should be,
Katiba Day.
you know, it should be like
is.
Monday, Tuesday,
Just like every
Wednesday.
day is your alive day, but you have one day that you celebrate your birthday. I
Your
mean, come
alive
on.
No, you're missing the message.
I'm not missing the message.
You
I'm refusing to
are.
take that message.
He said. Okay.
It doesn't matter. So let's remove President William Rutto from declaring Katiba Day.
Yes.
See, we are marking tomorrow as Katiba Day.
Katiba Day.
Whether the president had done his proclamation or not, we'd have had this conversation today as our plan ahead of tomorrow.
Listen to the last bit. Creating a commemoration day in a sea of impunity, theft, human rights violation, and corruption is an insincerely vacuous effort.
Lady Justice, Vice Chair, do you agree? Do you disagree in terms of... Yes, I see where Eric is coming from. Katiba Day is Katiba Day. But I think the point that Livity is making is there's a sense that it's not upheld in its sincerity every other day. Because Katiba is turning 15, it had to be. But what about all the other days? It feels like the spirit of the Constitution is compromised.
I agree, Janet, that every day of our lives should be a Katiba Day. We should be doing what we are supposed to do. You, in your space in the media, do what you're supposed to do. For us in the Judicial Service Commission, for us in the Judiciary, let us do what we are supposed to do. If it's a question of rendering justice, please render justice. Do not render an injustice. So every day of our lives, we are supposed to live, breathe, sleep, Katiba. But then there is that one special day tomorrow when we commemorate the 15 years since the promulgation. But I agree entirely that every single day of our lives should be a Katiba Day.
Yes, I agree with that. I only want to add that, you see, the Katiba Day, it's okay to celebrate, but first and foremost, are we patriotic to Kenya? Do we first look at that we are Kenyans, why we are Kenyans? Look at the national anthem. And if we became true to the national anthem, the answer to being and celebrating Katiba every day would work. But first of all, we must think as Kenyans. But there is one relic that seems to be refusing to get out of Kenyans' minds. They want to think tribal, to think regional, to think individualistic. We seem to be forgetting about the entire picture that we are Kenyans. Once we agree that we are Kenyans and we celebrate being Kenyans every day, like Americans having the flag in the window of their houses, out there in the villages, that we are Americans and therefore their constitution. Therefore they celebrate their Katiba continuously. Those two are inseparable. Their citizenship, the fact that they are citizens of this country, and what do they want for the country. But we tend to get lost, and then somebody just wants to come and celebrate Katiba. But what Katiba of where? Why? What is it? So let's start from where we should. First of all, we must remain Kenyans. And being where we are, there's something I forgot, which I thought maybe Sichale should have, Lady Justice Sichale should have maybe first made us aware of and separate is the fact that there's a difference between Judicial Service Commission and the Judiciary. What is the work of the Judicial Service Commission? I can see she has a Katiba. If it will be useful for her to tell us what's that difference, so that even as we talk, me, I'm not a judge. I'm in the Judicial Service Commission. She's in the Judicial Service Commission, but she's a judge.
Yes.
So she is in the Judiciary. I'm not in the Judiciary myself. And what is the role of the Judicial Service Commission? What is the role of the Judiciary? We need to understand the differences of these two, so that moving forward, we are also debating from a position of knowledge.
I agree. Justice Sichale, do you want to perhaps give us that distinction? Yeah. What does the Judicial Service Commission do? Oh, yeah, and the difference with the Judiciary.
Right. Now, the Judicial Service Commission is what is also referred to as Chapter 15 commissions. In our Constitution, we have Chapter 15, which sets out a number of commissions, including the Judicial Service Commission. And as we were saying, initially that, you know, we moved on from after the 2010 Constitution, the commissions were created under Chapter 15, and basically to check on the excesses of the yesteryears. There is an argument to the extent whereby it is said that these Chapter 15 commissions constitute a fourth arm of government. As to whether that is the position or not, I think the jury is still out there. So we have the Judicial Service Commission, which is there to facilitate and promote the independence and the workings of the judiciary. We hire judges. We make recommendations to the president to set up tribunals in case you have judges who have been non-compliant of the various issues that are stipulated in Article 168 of the Constitution. So basically, this is, you could say, for lack of a better word, you have the employer who then is in charge of the judiciary to see that the operations of the judiciary are in tandem with what is set out by statute.
Okay,
Your question.
so maybe now, to your point.
Yeah.
So the public confidence essentially swings when it comes to the judiciary.
Yes.
So maybe Lady Justice can speak to how to build that public trust, but Vice Chair can speak to the role of the JSC
Yes.
in ensuring that the public confidence is maintained, right? So I can see those distinctions. I hope that's accurate. So yeah, so you're speaking to, yes, like I said, in 2017, there was that moment around the presidential petition when there was a lot of praise, but oftentimes that confidence swings. I think Eric mentioned sometimes it's when it's personal, if it's something that hasn't gone my way, but it affects the public confidence in the judiciary. Some even saying, is it as independent? Are they able to push back on political influence? So how can you speak to public confidence and how the public needs to know that they can be confident in the judiciary? And then Vice Chair, you'll come back and talk about the role of the GSC in that regard as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Janet. Having been in the judiciary now for about 13 years, before then I was in private practice, and I do remember the difficult moments where as an advocate you appear before a judge, you know you have a good case, you know that you've advised your client that you have a good case, your client has paid you money, and you appear before a judge or a magistrate and you end up losing the case. Then the question, of course, would be, the client would be wondering, did you give me correct information? Did you give me proper advice? Because indeed, if you said I had a good case and you advised me that we go to court and we have lost this case, where is the problem? Now, the work of a judge is a very difficult job. I always say, I wish we were in a situation whereby Janet and Mariam come to court, you arbitrate, and I say, both of you have won, go home. Because I'm sure both of you will say, that was a very fair judge.
Yeah.
But we are in this unfortunate situation whereby if you lose Janet, you will be saying, she's the most corrupt judge. Mariam has won, Mariam would be like, she's not corrupt. So you are really caught up in that space. But for me and for many members of the judiciary, judges, they actually do a day's clean job in terms of dispensing justice. I know of so many of my colleagues who really work so hard to ensure that we dispense justice. And I'm not saying that there are some of those, although few of them, really, who are, you know, the spoilers in this whole process. And it is unfortunate because I think as a country, we all live in this country. And as I was saying, each one of us, from the space which you occupy, you need to do what you're supposed to do. And because we draw judges from the pool of academia, we draw judges from the pool of advocacy, we draw judges from magistracy, for instance, it would be foolhardy for me to say that these are men and women of integrity that are hired to become judges in the judiciary. So sometimes you don't get it right. You end up hiring a judge and you get so many complaints about the judgeship in terms of the judgments that they render. And then, of course, now, when there are those issues, some of those issues, then they are reported to the Judicial Service Commission. I don't want to speak about the Judicial Service Commission because you've asked Governor Rutto to do that. But, of course, the bottom line is you may be having strong suspicion that a judge is corrupt. But is there evidence? And as we all know, I think that is the most difficult part when it comes to establishing evidence of corruption. I think I listened to the media a lot. I heard a former minister say that when it comes to issues of corruption, it is not a spectator's game. In other words, you don't see it when it is being done because it's done in secrecy. So really, the difficult part is trying to get the evidence that is sufficient then to be able to process a judge or a magistrate to the next level. And that is where we are.
Okay. That's fair. Go right ahead.
Yes.
From the JSC perspective.
From the JSC perspective.
Yes, from the JSC's perspective, I want to mention that, for instance, our main responsibility is to protect the independence of the judiciary as well, and also do oversight and ensure accountability. Now, Lady Justice Sichale has clearly mentioned that, look, we receive a lot of complaints, but we must wade through all that and establish what really is the one supported by evidence. But obviously the clients will think whichever way, like she has just mentioned, that she wanted something to happen. We must also understand that the judges and the magistrates, the JOs, have a right to a very fair treatment like everyone else. It's not just you when you go before them. And then for them, you don't want them to go through the same process, that you give them the benefit of doubt until it is proven. So sometimes somebody believes that, look, there is really something wrong, but maybe a lot of it is driven by the fact that he lost the case. Yeah, and when you lose the case, you got a lot of bitterness, maybe rightfully or wrongly. And then we tend to forget also that, look, if you feel the case did not go your way and there is something that may have gone wrong, either through negligence or maybe the judge didn't look at your facts well, you still have the appellate process. You move to the next court. You don't just go to the Judicial Service Commission to punish the judge because you lost the case. No, you lost the case, proceed upwards. If you have got real evidence that there was corruption that happened, give it to us. And I want to make it clear that, for example, we have processed about 946 petitions against judges. Since when? Yeah, I think, I may not give you the
life of the JSC.
The life of the JSC. It is 946 petitions against judges. We forwarded 10 petitions to the president for the appointment of tribunals to look at the matters. We have also dismissed 210 judicial staff from service. Judicial staff, we can discipline and do everything to completion. But for the judges, they have to go through a tribunal. The most recent one, the judge was acquitted and went to continue with the work. So we got to understand that there are very clear established procedures for dealing with these things. So it's not a matter of us being told this judge is corrupt and you expect certain action, parading them all over in the next week simply because you've done that. Of course, there are certain things that we are now doing. We are coming up with the regulations and we are now doing public participation so that the regulations are clearly understood. How do we go through all this process. We got to understand that maybe we are late in doing that one, but we've started it. It was
the regulations for exactly.
Sorry, yeah.
The regulations which will guide the process of discipline. Currently, we've not published that, so that then Kenyans can read and understand the procedures.
Oh, this is so the public being Kenyans, but the regulations being for judicial officers.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that you do how we do the
process of complaining and handling the complaints to processing at the end.
Yeah, so that Kenyans can understand. Another issue is, for example, this particular forum you have today. You know, for quite a bit of time, the judiciary has tended to be a bit tardy with information. Yeah. Maybe we've not come out to talk much, and I think you need to give us more audience so that we can be explaining these things. You can also question us, especially JSC. Yeah. Leave the judiciary aside.
The judiciary has actually done some work in opening its doors up to the public.
Yes.
It's the JSC now. Now it's good that you're here.
Yes.
But maybe I could also add on that when it comes to the question of complaints. The figures for the last 2 years actually do indicate that 94% of the complaints that were received by the Judicial Service Commission touched on merit. And so it's about 6% where you could see that there were issues. Okay. Now, when it comes to the complaints that are currently pending before the Judicial Service Commission, and I say this because I now chair the complaints committee, we actually have 95, a total of 95 complaints as at 29th of July this year. Now, out of these 29 complaints, 56 are pending review for the first time. 9 are before the different panels. We have 3 panels that hear these matters. One is a matter that has been completed and is pending a report being made to the full council, and then we have 23 of those matters whereby we've asked the judges to make responses. After the initial review, we found that it was important or it was necessary to ask the judges to respond. So contrary to the possibility that people think that there are so many matters pending before the Judicial Service Commission, I want to say there are only 95. And going forward, we want to be real time when it comes to these matters so that a litigant who has filed a complaint against the Judicial Service Commission, filed a complaint against a judge, doesn't have to be on hold forever. Yep. It is also important for the judge or the magistrate who has been reported to JSC not to have these charges in court hanging over their heads for an indefinite period.
We have a caller just before we come back to continue the conversation from Garissa. Apologies, I didn't get the name. Samuel from Garissa. Okay, good morning, Samuel. Thank you for calling. Do you have a question or comment for this conversation today?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Nataka kuchangia kwamba the topic of Kenya State Parliament is open to.
Samahani.
Yes, someone from Garissa. I'm saying this. You know, the Constitution of Kenya is very paramount to our country, and nobody is above the law. The law must be followed up to the letter. We must follow the Constitution of Kenya. Yes. And you know, sometimes some entities don't follow the Constitution because they feel that they are above the law. Yeah, so even the President of Kenya, and I can see my former government looking, and everybody on board, whether you are an MPA, whether you are an MP, whether you are a senator, you must follow, or we must follow the Constitution to the latter, because the Constitution is paramount. You know, it's like a law which governs your house. So we must follow the law, and the judiciary should take anybody who breaks the law without any issue of corruption and who unajua mpetu wa Kenya. Iko na shida ya kwamba who break the law.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, you know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. That's
that's my application.
Okay.
Asante, Samuel.
And as we celebrate the day tomorrow,
Okay.
all right.
how I wish that we celebrate the day with some money.
All right.
Okay, thank
Asante. Yeah, he's very right. I think, and that's the thread that we're pulling on. It's that each one of us, as citizens, as the judiciary, as the JSC, as media practitioners, we all owe it to the Constitution to uphold it to the very best of our ability.
Yes.
I'm thinking through my earlier question.
Yeah.
Devolution was also meant to devolve justice, not in the sense that you devolve education or healthcare or things like, but to make sure that yes, everyone has access to justice. Have we devolved justice? Let me begin with the former.
What do you mean by devolving justice?
I
Bringing
mean
it closer.
to the very
Like having the judiciary-
last mile justice.
having
Yes.
judicial stations
Yes.
closest
Yes.
to you.
To you.
Okay.
Or if it's on whichever way, but you can
Access
access
to justice.
Yes.
Yes, I want to state that that has been quite a long journey. Access to justice is paramount and most important. In terms of physical proximity, we've made quite some strides in ensuring that this happens. For instance, other than automation, which also makes it easier to access justice, we are opening up courts in the far-flung areas. We've not made a lot of progress in that direction because of funding gaps. A lot of our courts are incomplete because unlike the other arms of government, the judiciary tends to get very, very low funding levels. For instance, we get half what is allocated to parliament. And the judiciary is supposed to be everywhere, and we've got a large population, a bigger duty, but we get about half what is allocated. Half of what we request is what we're given. So we've not, the resources are not moving together with the requirements. For instance, we are required to open, to have courts in every sub-county. In every sub-county.
Yeah.
But you'll find that we have only one in about 3 or 5
In a cluster of sub-counties.
Cluster of sub-counties. And there are areas where we really don't know what we're going to do because citizens travel a whole day. They use 2,000 in traveling. For example, Turkana, let me use that. We've been there and we've met citizens complaining that, look, I use 2,000 shillings to come all the way and I will come and stay, I come a day before.
Yep.
And then now I'll be here the whole of tomorrow and then I'll travel the 3rd day back home.
Wow.
And maybe he'll come
That's
and find
gone.
the witnesses didn't turn up or something like that, so it's postponed.
It doesn't proceed.
Now, that is very expensive.
Yeah.
We ought to have, to allow access to justice, we need court stations as close to where Kenyans are as is practical. And we cannot do that by investing reasonably in provision of physical infrastructure.
So what are you doing, Vice Chair, to kickstart that? Because I even have a question here. Somebody has sent a question. Some infrastructure construction has stalled for as long as 20 years. In your county, Bomet,
yes,
saying there's a court station there that has just been incomplete for very many years.
Yes.
Kericho operates on some makeshift structures, so, and you've talked about them. So what are you doing? Yes, you have limited resources.
Yes, in fact, we are engaging the legislature. We are in touch with JLAC. We are talking with the Treasury. We are talking with everyone who participate in the disbursement of cash so that we are able to construct. Like now, the one you are mentioning of Bomet was started in 2013. And it hasn't moved these past several years. I hardly see it moving this year either because we have no allocation to support it. And not just Bomet. There are worst case areas where the courts were just started and nothing is happening. And we can't do much. And But we've come up with other methodologies, which Lady Justice Sichale is quite...
yes, I can talk about them actually. To ameliorate the problem, we've set up the Mahakama Popote, whereby a judge or a magistrate who doesn't really have like a lot of work can be able to work online and help. Say you're in Garissa, you can help a judge in Nairobi. We've also set up the mobile courts. In fact, we have 59 mobile courts, whereby the court now visits the area, and you are able then the citizens are then able to access the courts. Terms of...
Can I ask what the mobile court looks like? Is it a vehicle, like literally, literally a vehicle, or
yes.
it's just the judge going to the area?
It's a judge arriving, setting up a tent.
Precisely. Many a times under a tree. And you remember how the barazas used to be held.
Yes.
And so it's a replica of that. So we have those mobile courts. We have Mahakama Popote. We have 143 magistrates courts, which are not enough, as the governor has indicated. When it comes to the high court stations, we have 47 in 42 counties. And of course, each county, at least the very minimum, should have a high court. And then, so all these are initiatives that the judiciary has undertaken. The alternative justice system, again, is extremely important, whereby the Constitution has placed a value on alternative accessible as much as possible
to people who are left behind.
Yes.
We'd like to stay with you for a few more minutes, I think, just because this is a momentous occasion. So we'll come back and just ask a few more questions, but we do have a Lady Justice Fatuma Sichale, Court of Appeal representative, a Judicial Service Commission, and of course the Vice Chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, Isaac Rutto. We'll come back after the break. Tell us about whether justice, the same, what they're talking about, is it reaching far and wide? Are you able to access justice as easily, obviously post the promulgation of the Constitution? It's coming up to a minute to 9 a.m. We'll be back after this short break.
Yeah, we're hosting the Vice Chair of the Judicial Service Commission, the Honorable Isaac Rutto, and Lady Justice Fatuma Sichale, who is in the JSC as well, representing Court of Appeal judges. And we've been talking about, the progress of the judiciary and the Judicial Service Commission and access to justice since 2010, when we give ourselves a new constitution. 15 years down the road, do we have better, greater access to the justice? We've talked about new court stations have been established. We've talked about digitization of the judiciary and access through digital spaces. You've talked about Mahakama, and where there's mobile courts. Mahakama Popote.
Small claims court.
There's establishment of the small claims court. We've talked about even previously here about the small claims court, about the alternative justice systems and all, which have been moving us towards that. But this thing that keeps hovering over the head of every aspect of Kenyan society, corruption, and the judiciary is expected to have no feeling at all or any sentiment around corruption, which is absolutely impossible. I mean, considering that it's in our society. But then the Judicial Service Commission, what are you doing to make sure that there are no, that you have sealed loopholes for corruption? Have you conducted a study to see how does corruption permeate in the judiciary, in the corridors of justice, and how do we then set up the traps? Not even the traps. It's not about arresting. It's how do you seal those loopholes? Are there any mechanisms that you've set up?
Again, on those issues, like I mentioned, Lady Justice Sichale will assist us on that, knowing her background. And I also want to point out that there is STAJ, which is the blueprint of the current Chief Justice, which seeks to address all these issues in a nutshell. Maybe Lady Justice Sichale could elaborate on what STAJ is and therefore answer some of these questions.
Thank you, Vice social transformation through access to justice. Yes. And when we talk about justice, I think the word justice just speaks for itself. The judiciary must render justice. And of course, I want to tie this with the question that you asked about what are we doing in a bid to fight corruption. Admittedly, fighting corruption is not an easy task, but we have undertaken several endeavors. First and foremost, there is the Code of Conduct for Judges, which as a Judicial Service Commission, we insist that it must be strictly adhered to. Those who flout it find their way to the Judicial Service Commission. Sometimes it is not necessarily through a complaint that is filed, but even the Judicial Service Commission, suo moto, can take up a matter where it has been brought to its attention that a judge or a magistrate has flouted the Code of Conduct. Then we've also had to establish integrity committees, and this is a recent invention, whereby each and every court station has an integrity committee. And we require our judges, our magistrates, that every morning before the court session starts, they speak to the members of the public, assure them that the services being rendered by the judiciary come at no cost, and that in the event that anybody is asking for any bribe money, then there is a person to go to in terms of reporting. The aspect of automation, I think that is also going to greatly help, because the interface between the person who is seeking the services and the person who is rendering that service will be greatly minimized. Again, when officers come, judicial officers, cadis, judges, when they come for promotional interviews or when they are seeking to be appointed, and as I did indicate, we place a premium on the virtue of integrity. We take them through their backgrounds and what they have done in the past, and if there are any integrity issues that have been brought to the fore, then of course we would be very hesitant to take up such a candidate. And just recently, just to give you an example, we were interviewing magistrate and cadis for promotion. And of course, when they come, as I've indicated, we take them through their records as far as their integrity is concerned. And I remember one cadi saying this to us, that the act of writing a judgment is a form of worship. And I could understand that, because of course in their judgments they would cite the Quran. Yeah. The Christians cite the Bible. So the act of writing a judgment is a form of worship. And if it is a form of worship, really, you can only render justice, but not an injustice.
Wow, that's very profound. It's a form of worship. I'm just wondering, what, beyond backlogs, beyond funding, beyond corruption, what's the one thing that you hope we can fully fix now? Not at Katiba at 30. Tunarudi hapa, we're like, remember 15? Remember when we did Katiba at 15? So you've spoken, both of you, to some of the challenges and some of the things you're rolling out to address them, whether it's access to what we're calling devolved justice. You've spoken to the various petitions that have been issued against. But what is the one thing that you're sitting here thinking, if we've not resolved this by Katiba at 30, then we've not done Kenyans any good? What comes to mind?
Maybe I can say we don't lack the knowledge. We don't lack, I can say, speaking sincerely for both the judiciary and the JSC, we don't lack the will and the gusto to do the work. We now need facilitation. We have to establish these courts physically to stop Kenyans moving those distances. We must start accepting that, for example, funding the judiciary is as important as funding any other arm of government. There are supposed to be 3 arms of government. This one has the lowest, and it is actually in the backwaters of funding. And yet, Kenyans are traveling very long distances. We've got very good policies. The stage is hopes to do social transformation through access to justice. If you can't access justice, it is also hindering on your economic well-being. It is hindering on your social well-being. You've got to understand, for instance, that look at matters of succession, land. A lot of Kenyans, I think in the probably fourth generation now, don't have titles to the land where they are living in. And some of them end up finding that their land has actually gone elsewhere. Some of them spend 30 years to get their rightful inheritance. And they spend a lot of money. That's a lifetime lost. And therefore, even when you get it, what then happens? You can no longer invest.
Very true.
So the faster we get these courts at the sub-counties, the better for Kenya. Let us just go into a serious program of funding the judicial so that then all these things can then be implemented in appropriate spaces.
Agreed. What about you, Lady Justice?
I think for me, what is really paramount is to fight corruption. We've admitted that there is corruption in the society. But I think if there is one institution that should be corrupt-free, then I think that should be the institution of the judiciary. Because bearing in mind the work that we do, we sit to arbitrate upon fellow human beings. That's a very hallowed responsibility. And the least that anybody can do is to render injustice. Admittedly, again, we have very many good judges. It's only a few. And it is only those few that we need to deal with so that we have a corrupt-free judiciary where Kenyans have confidence and trust in it, and we do not go back to the year 2007, because I think we all remember what happened that time, when Kenyans said, why hire a lawyer when you can buy a judge?
Thank you.
Very well said. And on that point, let me just plug in. On the last word tonight, we actually are addressing this question of corruption. And the question we are asking ourselves is it possible to slay the dragon of corruption in Kenya? That's what we'll be discussing at 9:30 p.m. tonight.
That's a big question.
And a big dragon.
Yeah, a big dragon.
But thank you so much, Lady Justice Fatuma Sichale, Court of Appeal Representative, Judicial Service Commission, and Vice Chairperson, Judicial Service Commission, Isaac Rutto. Katiba at 15. How is justice being served? I think they've spoken to it. And we'll continue to mark it throughout the week, of course, with the highlight being tomorrow, the official Katiba turning 15. In just a few moments, we come back and Mariam will tell us what she's missing on Miss Me With That. We're coming back in just a bit.
Hello, my name is Nixon Boro Wadugere, and I'm really praying for this nation. May peace, love, and unity prevail. May God protect our IEBC officials before and after the elections. Usually, after elections, I have noted IEBC officials hawaendangi vizuri sana. I pray that their life be healthy before and after elections.
Well, as we continue our next conversations, let's just go back to that news fix that we played a few minutes ago, which is what was happening in America, where U.S. President Donald Trump says, you know what, corrupt, no, dictator, me, dictator, come on, miss me with that. And this is after he instructed the National Guard to come over and, patrol the streets armed on the streets of Washington, D.C. And then there was a lot of question about not just Washington, D.C., but also other states, where he's saying there's rising crime levels. And so he's saying, let's deploy the armed National Guard to deal with this. He responded